Hello. What you're looking at here is, well, I think you can see it's painted black. So it's shiny. Looks good. So that's what's going into the car. Also, I pressed the axle assembly together. Everything is put together. I had a little bit of a contention with two what appeared to be a small locking ring and a standard size Ford locking ring. But I was able to resolve that on the phone today. There's a 1/2 inch locking ring that the OD happens to be the outside diameter of the race for the seal. This guy right here, and you can see the race is relatively exposed. Well, he provided another collar. Now, what the heck is that? A collar for the disc brake kit that you get with the 9-inch Ford. So if you take that collar off and throw it away, you got a new one to put on, because it's a disc brake kit along with the, this assembly here. Well, that's a kit, and that's a kit, and that's a kit, and I'm not much for kits. But anyway, the whole point being that I had to call and find out what the one collar was for, and it spaces it. It pushes the axle out. They manufactured the housing to accommodate the extra 1 inch, 1/2 inch, and 1/2 inch in flange width, such that by pushing that flange out farther away from the 4 bolts for the bearing retainer sans caliper bracket, this hat on their offered disc brake assembly then goes on to that axle in said location, so that when you mount that and that, etc., to the housing, your caliper distance from where the mounting area is to the disc over there will line up properly. I can't do it like that. So anyway, more like, give me a finger. We'll use that one. Caliper. This is the disc. This is the caliper. Without rubbing on either side. So we've got this whole setup in a position for curing, but in a certain amount of time for assembly. That time which isn't today. I just passed this and noticed it, again, ADHD. If you've never used this, try it. Self-etching primer. And you can see that's what I probably talked a little bit about it. It's there and there. You get some black overspray, but it basically comes off and dries to a kind of an interesting color. But whereas the primer filler is extremely hard to scratch, you have to sand. I can leave oil from my fingers on it, but you can't scratch it. It does a wonderful job. It's just got an acid in the paint so that it etches into the metal. It's a single part. It works great. Would not use it for a body. Always epoxy, 2-part, all that kind of stuff. When you're getting up here into this is epoxy on here. But for something like that, it is the cat's meow. It's great for home projects. It's great for something like a chassis that's going to see so many rocks and stuff. Yeah, epoxy will help. Again, that's why I went with enamel, because you can get it on relatively heavy. The mill is considerably substantial by comparison to, say, automotive type paint. And it takes a long time to cure, weeks, up to a month before you get it hard. So after it's all sprayed, you just got to deal with it very, very, very handily. And as you can see, I have not, because the engine tapped and that. But I mean, again, I'm going to coat it again. Anyway, I've been very careful from here back, put the engine mounts on and all that. But if I need to touch up, I will. I have touched up a couple of spots up here. There's one right there. And I believe I can wet sand that. That's got just build on it because I touched it up with a brush. If I can't, I'll hit it. It's kind of like, why? This is going to be a driver. It'll go to a few shows first, though. But I still want to have a good, heavy, fully cured enamel body on the chassis. And this here is primer. I'm scratched to the primer. So, not to say that if I didn't put enough rape into it, a sharp object, that kind of thing, that I'd break through. But there are a few spots that I'll touch again with the black when I do the horizontal surface again, and get it with unexposed paint, or unexposed, without paint on it, with chips. And then when it fully cures, this stuff does cure good. I painted a Bronco with my own blend of my own color. It was a gray, but it was a mixture of metallic gray and blue and black. Yeah. And that thing went for 5 years. 5 years on the exterior. And it did start to oxidize, though. Because it's, I don't know, because it's what? Because that enamel doesn't have the appropriate UV inhibitors and stuff. If I would have clear coated it, it would have been great. It sanded off, spectacular. But it was 5 years later, but it sanded off great, and the fill properties were spectacular. But again, it doesn't have the quality that you're going to have in a two-part automotive finish anymore, a urethane. But for a chassis, I love it. I love it. No matter what you do on a chassis, unless you undercoat it, and even then, but you're going to get chips. You're going to get chips. So this will be box lined. This will be epoxy sprayed, and then box in lined with the same stuff as up here. It'll be lined with box liner. So the whole interior is lined that way. Good sound deadener, but rubber. Ground up rubber impregnated into it to help it ward off road noise and chips. So there you have it. A lot of just rambling today, but at the end of the story, making some progress. Not going to hang out here that much more tonight. Just going to basically clean up and head in. Thanks. Okay, today is story time, and I'm sick still. Okay. I got the stack up, bearings and everything pressed onto the axles. I did that last night. Let the paint kind of cure out, and then decided I'd stick the long side in first, passenger side in first. And I stuck it in, and the doggone axle's too long. So then I grabbed the short axle. Stuck him in the driver's side, and went in about 3/4 of the bearing, not all the way, but I wasn't catching any splines, and I know 1/4 of an inch or so is not enough spline interference to keep the axle alive. Okay, I didn't want to go into the lip seal on the axle. So I went up to the lip seal. Okay. 2/3, whatever. So then I began mocking up and measuring. And I get my dimension from this side to this is 2 inches longer than my dimension from this side to this. Divided by 2 axles, I'm 1 inch offset. Standard Ford differential, which is validated by when I mocked up, and I think I've already talked to you about that. I had to offset the links to accommodate the standard Ford offset of 1 inch, 15/16, but let's call it an inch, because this plate is put on the center line of the pinion, the top mount plate. Bottom, they're the same distance and all that, because that's all relative to the frame. This is relative to the axle assembly. Okay, so I'm living with that. I decided I'll just run with it and leave the offset pinion, move the upper links over an inch, right? And we articulated the suspension, full angle, up, down, all that. Of course, up, down is no big deal because dimensionally it's the same. It's just that this is moved over on the chassis because of the way it mounts up here. But in a 4-inch drop and a 4-inch rise, which the car will never see, not a 4-inch rise, 3.5 because I hit the frame, but on a 4-inch drop on the opposite end, go around and do the same thing, it's fine. You have to get a hell of a lot more angle on the suspension in order to create any type of bind in the bushings. So, it's fine. It's roadworthy. I'm not changing the structural integrity. I was just more concerned about the ride quality. Not concerned about it at all. So now that's done. Finished welding everything up. And what appears to be the case is they sent me the axles for the centered pinion, pulled an assembly off the shelf, or cut the tubes for the offset pinion. If this is making any sense at all. And the result is one's too long, one's too short. Now clearly I can cut the long one. That's not a big deal. But stretching those sons of bitches is a mother. So now I'm back at the rework phase of trying to determine what the manufacturer wants to do, so that, because this is their issue, right? So I've got my email out to the manufacturer and the supplier, the distributor, whatever you want to call them, and they've got to decide if they're sending me new assemblies. The shitty thing is I did all the stack up and all that, so all that's got to come apart. I am willing, of course, to just cut this one because it's nothing to shorten the axle. It's a common practice. But I want them to give me the dimensions. Yeah, I can measure about and all that. But with those spacers in the bottom, and I've been calling them a 1/2 inch, that's what they look like. I never physically measured them. Okay, I press the bearing on. I can pull the seal. I think I might be able to dimension them, get an actual physical dimension. They're probably 4.375. They're probably 7/16 because that appears to be. Come on, Fred. Appears to be a common dimension with the Ford, with what I've seen online. But I would, of course, need to actually physically measure it. Anyway, so there's where I'm at. I'm at a hard stop. Still, of course, I have to flip the frame, and the paint's still got to cure, so it's not a tragedy. Again, every time you move along, you got to check and make sure it's working. Now, in this case, I'm taking some responsibility for this, because why the hell didn't I check that at the instant I opened the package? You trust what you're getting in from the manufacturers to be, whatever, to go through some quality checks. Clearly they have the specifications for the inch and a quarter, whatever the pin diameter in the 9-inch. They have all of the information for axle length, so they can just pop it in, right? I'm going to build a 54 and 3/8 or whatever it is rear differential. I'm going to build that, And the result is that I'm going to make, these are the conditions, I'm going to make that, and then voila, here's what we got. We got it all set up and ready to go. They're going to have tables for all that because it's efficient. But then again, who knows what conversation happened, and if Billy and Bob and Jimmy got together and decided to help out each other, and instructions were unclear, and this is the result. So it's not, I mean, it's frustrating. It's really more frustrating for me that I didn't just simply check that. Check your work. Check what comes in. Check your work. Always check your work, but that's more common to do, right? You did it. You're gonna inspect it. You're gonna measure. Check the work for the products that come in the door. I did do that on the front, and I found some dimensional issues that I was able to compensate for. I mean, cosmetically it's the same, but this tower is slightly different than that tower in the sense of the width and when it was welded up. It's not a critical dimension. It's not a locating dimension. You use the center line and go from there. I mean, and that's pretty common in fabricated pieces. They're not going to be, you know, three significant figures to the right. You're not going to use a caliper to dimension out fabricated pieces. It just says it doesn't occur that way. Some people do though. But in any event, I guess what I'm relegated to now is just concentrating on the frame and flipping it and waiting, which I don't think it's going to be an overly cumbersome process, but frustrating nonetheless. Thought I'd share it with you. Message today is check your work. Check your work. Check your work. Check your manufacturer's work. Check your manufacturer's work. Check your manufacturer's work. Your supplier, because you don't want to run into these gaps. The 2 or 3 minutes worth of checking that it takes when you get it out of the box, not when you get well into it, is well worth the effort over the long haul. Have a great one, guys. All right, you saw that yesterday. I didn't get the axle. I'm fighting with the, not fighting, but I'm working with the manufacturer. This is just sitting in here. There's nothing on there. I need to get that axle. I spec'd out the hubs. Hubs are 40 thousandths of an inch smaller diameter. Let's start over. The disc brake hats, the center hole is 40 thousandths of an inch smaller diameter than the hub. Shit happens. So I did flip the frame over today and welded on. You can see I plugged and then stitched these plates on, and so I have a drain, you know, for any moisture, humidity, or what have you gets up in there. So on both sides now, so that'll drain down, this will drain down, that goes all the way through. So I just cut those pieces up, formed them, and then capped the bottom of the frame. You can see more clearly now how this one piece, you know, it's kind of, in a sense, it's kind of worthless material going up the side, and maybe to a certain degree, one could say that's ugly, but it does locate the upper and lower control links as I wanted in the past. So realistically, if I got my link arms all the way to the same length, adjusted and all that stuff, I can locate the rear end and use the link to find that location. And that's the normal way of doing things, right? Stick it on the rear housing, trust the straightness of the rear housing, all that kind of thing. But in the CAD design, if I have those located relative to each other, the rear end located, my only control is my wheelbase. So any minor adjustment there to verify my center lines, all that kind of thing is good, but I'm only relying on these 2 points, not the link possibly a half a turn or a full turn out. But, yeah, you check and you check your setups and you check it over and over and over again. However, what I do know from this setup is that everything relative to the setup is where it is supposed to be exactly. Finished welding, because it's flipped over, finished welding that, the bottom sides of these, this side, like I said, the interior side, finished everything all the way around. All the way around. So that's done. I think I'm gonna take you can see here, I think I'm gonna take and cut this lip off. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I cut it off later when the rear axle needs that extra half of an inch. I doubt it. I doubt it, because the bump stops on the shocks, I guess, are more than a half of an inch. So where are those? Yeah, the bump stops are easily an inch and a half. So worry resolved. I don't think that rubber is going to compress to 1/3 its size. Let's just take a quick measurement. Now that's speculation there. 1 1/4. 1 1/4 to more than half its size. It may, but I think that's going to slow the suspension down so quickly that it's nothing to worry about. So anyway, that's what I got accomplished in a little bit of time that I spent on this today. Got it flipped over. Got to finish then priming out that bar, cleaning the bar up, priming it out, and then getting the black on the bottom and flipping this puppy back over. So thanks, guys. Got her prepped up, cleaned up, a little bit of sanding just to kind of clean up the rough edges and any cut throughs or any marks from the jacks or the clamps. Then shot any of the bare metal spots with primer. And now I am going to, I even sanded out that spot there just to blend the chip in. And then I'm gonna shoot her in the black and leave her sit for the night. So tomorrow, if I can get some help, we'll flip the thing over, because now it'll be, sitting on carpet or something. Anyway, that's the plan. Shoot her in the black, bottom side, tonight. Thanks. Excuse me. So here we are, flipping the chassis over. So I use the body mounts there and there. I don't know how to. I don't know if I can or can't, but I'm not familiar with how to run a video for a whole bunch of time and then speed it up like these guys do. Just haven't done it. Got to learn how to do it. Maybe in the future I'll start doing it. But anyway, so the chassis was upside down, painted the bottom side. So you got to remember, this was like this. I ran those through the body mounts and then slowly lifted it up. I got this, I'm going to be walking around the shop here. But I got this, it's actually a car dolly. It's a car dolly with two 4x6s put on it. And I use it for a number of things, hauling that rear differential around. I used to use it for a lot of stuff. I can unscrew it if I want to use it for a car dolly. Anyway, so I got it over, flipped it over, put a glove in there up against the lift, and then started to lower it down. Now all these straps are loose. Everything here is loose at this point. That one's loose. I got it on the jack. So now with without the rear differential on, that's pretty close to the center of gravity. you know, right behind the dog leg. Anyway, I don't have much weight here at all. I mean, I can lift that up easily, but that's for, just stuck my creeper on it with a towel. I just want to protect the paint. So at this point, then I'm going to pull all these off. Excuse me. I'm going to pull those off and let the chassis down on the jack at the center, slide it back over, kind of try to get a position. So now every device that I have, except for the jack and the front wheels on the jack, I can, of course, turn it. But at this point, then I can move it and kind of try to position it before I set it on stands with cardboard and, you know, protect the paint type stuff. But set it on stands to spray the top. Then, but I want to get it kind of centered as best as I can on these holes, so I don't have to jack the body around that much when I need to drop it for the trans tunnel and that. So at this point, I'm getting it almost ready for position, but I thought this was a great opportunity for you guys to see what some hiccup in the northern part of America does to flip a chassis over and protect the paint. Towels, creeper, jack, car dolly, and a glove up against the lift. But you know what? It works. So I can't say I haven't scratched any paint yet because I haven't looked, but figured I'd capture this view here before we move on to the next phase. Thanks. Well, so like 20 minutes later, wasn't too hard. Flip it over, get it on the jack stands. You can see I got up some, I don't know, washcloth, folded it over. Right there's a sock. There's a sock. I couldn't find the pair, so I'm assuming that was a garage rag. So now I'm basically going to come in and clean up the back, prime the bare metal, that kind of thing, and squirt some black on it. So that's what I got going. Nearing the end of the frame paint. Of course, afterwards, the brake line, the fuel lines, all that other stuff then. So thanks for watching.